My name is Chief Amachi Apeto Buaru. I am the founder of IIKDS, the International Indigenous Knowledge and Development Society. The goal of our society is to preserve, develop, and transmit indigenous spiritual teachings to future generations. Today we're going to have a part 2 of the first video, which was curses and family curses and how to remedy them. There are certain concepts that I introduced in the first video that I think is very necessary for me to expound on. One of the things that I said is that many of you sisters have collected your family's noliwuni, or star. And one of the things I realized is that I need to make sure that I talk a little more detailed surrounding the subject matter of the noliwuni and the star, so you can understand what I mean by that. Many of you are familiar with nature and natural landscapes, whether you're dealing with mountains, valleys, rivers, different ecological landforms and landscapes. Well, many of you are familiar with the concepts that are spoken about in quantum mechanics or in these esoteric communities when they talk about the laws of vibration and movement. And in quantum physics, they describe particles and subatomic particles and the movement of those particles and the vibration of those particles, and how all things at that scale or that level are moving and vibrating very quickly. Well, the truth of the matter is that things are also moving that quickly, even on a larger scale. It's just somehow these esoteric communities have forgotten to talk about this particular subject matter, and that is the movement of the environment itself. So what I'm going to describe to you now is the movement of your environment, the movement of these landscapes and landforms that you see that appear to be stationary. But the truth of the matter is that they're moving very quickly. If you were to imagine a wheel and you were to spin the wheel with spokes, one of the things that you would notice is that the spokes on the wheel would begin to appear to become stationary, when in fact they're moving very quickly. Well, the same concept is taught in the traditional principles of Tim and Bukata. Tim, or Tima, means traditional medicine, roots, herbs, and magic. And Bukata, it means the world, soul, and the spirit powers of the earth. Within this traditional teachings that comes from the northern regions of Ghana, amongst the Dagomba people, it's taught that the environment and the environmental movement is very parallel to what has been explained in quantum mechanics. You see, the environment is moving so quickly that just like the spokes on the wheel, it appears to be stationary, but in fact it's moving very quickly. So quickly it's able to occupy spaces within your own being, within you. So there are many of you who talk about me and I. And what I'm explaining to you is that the concept of we and I is a collective whole. But that collective whole is comprised of a complexity of many individual units. And some of these individual units have their home and rest inside of you, but then also exist outside in nature. This is what I'm describing to you as far as collecting your star or your family star. Your family itself has a connection to nature. It has a connection to particular landforms and ecological environmental zones that they were raised in. And there are minds and mentalities that exist within these particular regions, locations, and points that exist around the earth, that exists in those regions, but then also exists inside of you. Yes. So that being said, there are many of you who have taken on this family star. And it has given you abilities. These abilities that we spoke about last, whether it's premonitions, whether it's a type of intuitive knowing, whether it's a variety of different gifts that have been titled by the mass communities as supernatural or spiritual abilities. These are reflections of this Noli Wuni. And you know, the interesting thing about the Noli Wuni is that many of you with these gifts, you are the caretakers of this Noli Wuni or this star for your family. And there may be a few of you in your family. And there are even family members that you have that are a part of other belief systems, monotheistic beliefs, whether it's Christianity, Islam, or Judaism. And even when they are praying and asking for helps, there is aspects of you and your Noli Wuni, or that star that follows you, that gives you that ability, or those many abilities, that travels to those people and helps them. So there are many components of yourself that exist inside of you, but then also exist inside of your family that has gone unrecognized. There are many parts of you that are a part of a structure, of a communal structure that existed with some of your ancestors. And some of your ancestors were working with parts of what you're calling the Noli Wuni that exists with you now, but then also their spiritual powers. They were operating and functioning at a higher capacity. They were priest and priestess in the community. We call it Tindena Paga, Bulana Paga, that were responsible for helping the community, healing the community, protecting the community spiritually. And there are many of your ancestors, of our ancestors, that because of the plights of colonialism have dropped this knowledge. This is the reason behind your suffering. I talked about not just women with abilities, but those of you who have the ability to track the behavior through the bloodline, where you see the women in your family were not able to come together or have healthy relationships with the men that they're with. Those of you that are able to track this specific type of behavior, and even the relationships within yourself that you experience. The reason why you're not able to experience this relationship is because you have yet to identify aspects of yourself that exists with you, that gives you the very abilities that you have. These are some of your ancestral birthrights that you carry with you, but you have chosen not to recognize them. So in doing so, they are stopping your relationships. And it's not until you begin to recognize those aspects of yourself and those aspects of your ancestry will you have the peace when it comes to your relationships. So this is what I'm explaining as far as good standings and bad standings. There's several of you that your ancestors had dropped this knowledge, and it has created a curse on your family. And those that have the gift have the responsibility to reconnect not only yourself, but essentially by you reconnecting to nature yourself, you are reconnecting your family as a whole to certain parts of nature. And you are saving your family. So while you think it's about yourself, I want you to understand that this path that you're taking is not only going to save you, but it's going to save your family as a whole. Because many of these gifts that you have, they have their own identity. These are spiritual beings that exist inside of you, but then also exist in nature. When you begin to recognize and to reconnect to your ancestors, it will remedy other issues that exist in your family that are not even connectedly or seemingly connected to you as an individual, but exist and rest within other family members that exist within your bloodline. We'll do a part 3 to this coming up next week.